Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the third annual Sacramento School Wellness Summit. We're so happy that you're here with us today, and we're truly honored that you're spending your afternoon with us. Whether you're joining from Sacramento or beyond, we thank you. My name is Hiba Eltahir, and I'm your host and a program administrator for the Healthy Schools team here at the Health Education Council. We are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to cultivate health and well-being in underserved communities by leveraging the power of collaboration. We hope that through this summit, you will come away with new ideas, knowledge, connections, inspiration, and a shared hope that a better, more equitable future is ahead for us and for our students and our families. Before we get started, I'd like to share a few housekeeping announcements. Attendee lines will be automatically muted and the video feature is off. This session is being recorded and the slides and recordings will be available after the summit. Please use the chat and Q&A feature to ask questions. We welcome dialogue and any discussion in the chat. We'll also be providing post-session surveys at the end of today's session and each session that follows. Incentives as well as professional development credits will be available for attendees who complete the post-session surveys. Attendees will also receive a copy of our HEC School Wellness Guide, and in order to receive a copy of this guide, please complete the post-session surveys. For those requesting professional development credits, you will also need to complete the post-session surveys for each session that you attend. With that, I'm excited to share that this year's theme is Mind, Body, Soul, Connecting the Whole. We will be digging into the intersection between nutrition, mental health, and physical activity, and how we can support the healing of our students and families. Today, I have the honor of introducing an amazing leader in his field and community who will be providing the keynote address for our summit, Superintendent Reyes Gauna. Dr. Gauna began his career as a custodian and campus monitor, working at all levels of education. Dr. Gauna focuses on creating a collective vision that engages students, parents, employees, and community members. Through his time working on the school grounds, he took an interest in teaching, and through this began his journey to get his teaching credential. After serving in the classroom at various grade levels, he went on to become a school counselor, principal, coordinator, assistant superintendent, superintendent of the K-8 district, and is now the current superintendent for the Patterson Joint Unified School District. He believes that every day is an opportunity to prepare students for tomorrow by providing relevant and engaging educational experiences. We are so fortunate to have Dr. Gauna with us today to provide the keynote address for our summit. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Gauna.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for this. What an honor and an opportunity to present at the third annual virtual Sacramento School Wellness Summit. As introduced, I've been doing this for close to 30 years, started my career as a custodian, but I've really dedicated my last 30 years to ensuring that all of our students' mind, body, and soul is intact as one unit. When I was presented the opportunity to speak about mind, body, and soul, I was kind of confused. I was like, well, what does this really mean? It wasn't until I dove deep into really understanding that mind, body, and soul is something that our children, whether we directly call it that every single day, or whether we live it every day with our children, that as educators, we really don't understand, or sometimes we don't see it that way. What I'm hoping in the next 15 or 20 minutes that I'm presenting, I'll talk a little bit about my past, my story, my personal story, and really take you on a journey of what it was like to be a young man, a young child, first generation Mexican-American individual, but not only because I'm Mexican-American, any child, and helping you understand a little bit about my story and how mind, body, and soul, reflecting now, 50 years later, has always been a presence in my life. I also want to focus a little bit about our real issue that we have right now. And that's the mental health of our children. There's challenges that our students face today that probably were highlighted with COVID-19. I think these problems existed before, but I think COVID-19 really brought out an awareness that our students' mental state is really taking an impact on our children. We'll address a little bit about learning loss, and then I'm hoping that throughout my presentation, I'll provide some strategies and resources. I do know that there are a lot of educators on here and parents and community members, and hopefully some of our students. It's a snapshot that I'm giving today. I'm not going to dive deep into a lot of these areas because that would turn into a 3-hour presentation, and I wasn't allowed 3 hours today, just so you know. But I thought it would be important to really start by understanding what mind, body, and soul really mean. So the mind is your mind. Your mind is your thinking mind, both conscious and unconscious. That is responsible for your beliefs, thoughts, and your actions. You know, when you're growing up, you really don't know about this. You really don't think about what are you thinking consciously and unconsciously. Our students go through this every day. Our students are bombarded with different beliefs. They're bombarded with different thoughts, and they're bombarded with a lot of different actions. So that's something that we'll dive into a little bit. The body, your body is the physical aspect of yourself that carries you through life and allows you to experience the world through the 5 senses: touch, sight, hearing, smelling, and tasting. Again, we do this innately. We don't really talk about it, but I encourage us to talk to our students about the importance of physical aspect, not just during PE, but when we have teachable moments and opportunities. And finally, the soul, your soul or spirit is the intangible part of you that you might refer to as your essence. That is who you are as an internal person. So I thought I would start with a little bit about my story. I've been asked many times, to say a little bit about who I am and where I've come from. So again, first generation Mexican-American, come from a family of 10. I had 5 sisters and 2 brothers. We lived in a 2-bedroom home with 1 bathroom. To say that we were in poverty would be an overstatement, but to say that we were not living, let's say, middle class and above, would probably be right in the middle of that. We grew up with beans, with tortillas, pasteurized cheese, and yes, that is actually powdered milk, which I enjoyed very well. To a lot of people seeing this and what I'm saying, wow, you would think, how does a person live that way? How do they take care of themselves? But let me tell you, from a body perspective and a physical perspective, I can tell you, I always felt really good. The way our family would interact with physical activity is, like a lot of us, I started by picking cherries with my families every year around May. And then once or twice we picked apples. But again, not really understanding that what my parents were doing was really taking care of my mind, body, and soul by me working, by me eating, and understanding not understanding the struggles. Similar to a lot of our students, they come to school and they don't realize that they live in these situations that maybe are not the best situations. What did that translate to in school? Well, at home, I was happy. I thought I was eating well. I was staying physically fit, but my mental state was consciously and subconsciously taking a hit. I was lonely and I didn't have many friends when I was in school. I was beaten up in the restroom by a school bully. My parents did not speak English, so I was alone and did not know how to defend myself. Silence would be my friend. Again, this is the conscious and subconscious stuff. Now, 50 years later, looking back, I really needed help, but I didn't know how to get that help. So that took me to high school, right? I struggled to belong and to find myself. The struggle became so overwhelming that I would leave high school mid-year during my senior year. But don't worry, I didn't drop out. I just graduated midterm. But I needed help. And challenges in life, nobody warned you about. These are going to be what our students deal with. So what I'm trying to share with you here is that my life as a young individual is something that we see every day. But I knew now that there's an impact that we as educators make on our students. For example, when we talk about our mind, if a student is struggling, as educators, we must provide additional support. Now, I think it's great in the morning to say good morning. It's great to understand our students, but what does this really mean? We have to dive deeper people. We have to make sure that our kids are not hungry in the morning. We have to make sure that our kids have all the needs that they have to make sure that they're successful. If we notice that a child is acting a certain way, we need to make sure that we're there supporting them. The body, besides academics, we must also focus on physical education for our students. In the article, Schools' Role in the Childhood Obesity Crisis, it reported that a positive correlation between the physical activity and academic performance was essential. Again, this is another example that though we want our students to be mentally stable and successful, we also need to make sure that physically that they are capable of continuing to grow exponentially. I don't know about you, but I've been in education. I was a former teacher, and I knew PE was really important to my students, whether we were doing PE outside, indoors, recess was important for them. I wanted to be out there with them. I wanted to make sure that they were enjoying it, that they were having opportunities. I even set up basketball tournaments, soccer tournaments, volleyball, you name it. We did it during lunchtime because we wanted to make sure that our kids were there. There's so much self-esteem that goes into helping a child to get that energy out, get their energy out through physical activity. So creating a safe place for our children to learn might begin with creating some space for them to breathe. Some of the things that I've seen in some of our classrooms that I visit, teachers have a quiet section, they have a reading section, they have couches in their classrooms, they have a lamp to kind of calm. They're playing Mozart, they're playing different soft music. Again, our students, when they come into your classroom, and I know I'm preaching to the choir because I have a lot of educators here, when our students come into our classroom, they need to know that that's a safe haven for them. For some of our students, what I always tell staff, for some of our students, when they come to school, that's where they're going to get the structure, the love, and the care that they need and the support. So we want to make sure that we are embodying that for our students. So I want to provide some strategies to connect with our students. The first one being, welcome students by saying hello and goodbye. There's a lot to be said when we welcome our students. You know, when I was a principal, and even to this day, I used to stand in the hallways and say, good morning, beautiful people. Good morning, beautiful people. Goodbye, beautiful people. How are you doing today? My office is always open for you. And can you imagine that 25 years later, as an educator, my students still look for me. Why? Because I made those connections with them, because I always took interest in what they were doing. Provide clear objectives and direction. What our students want is they don't want guesses. They don't want to have to figure out what's going on. What are we doing today? Give them clear objectives and direction. Walk and talk with students. If you're walking, passing period, if you're walking in the morning during recess time, you see a student walking by themselves, walk and talk with them. How was your day? What's going on? Why are you by yourself? Where are your friends? Oh, you don't have a friend? Well, come on, let's go help you. Those are some strategies that will help. Give students a voice. You know, I'm the new superintendent for Patterson Joint Unified School District. And one of the things that I've been doing a lot is I've been visiting the associate student body classes, or otherwise known as ASB, speaking to kids. This morning, I met with my middle school ASB students, and I said to them, when we don't listen to students and we don't capture what they're saying, we may lose an opportunity. It's important for our kids to know that we care about them, whether it's their mind, their body, or their soul, the way they feel, the way they eat. One of the things that we're doing here is we found out that the food was not the best food. So our food service department is bringing in a company to taste test some new food. We're going to have students in that. We're going to have parents in that. We're going to have staff members. We're going to have board members. Again, listening to our children, listening to our community. Make positive calls to families. I think too often, we're really quick to make a call about why a student isn't doing what they're supposed to do. How about those positive calls to empower our children to know that, hey, we're even looking when you're doing positive things. I'm not saying that we're not always looking for those positive things, and I'm not saying that we're not too busy, but again, we have to invest in our children if we want our children to strive. The next one is, we got to be a good listener. You know, I'm doing these listening to learn events right now where I'm introducing myself, and then I sit back and I listen, and I've taken so many notes. And the nice part is I have parents joining me, I have community members joining me, and the most valuable input I'm getting is from my students. They're giving me the best input in the world. And guess what I'm doing with that information? I'm turning around and meeting with individuals in my community, in my district, and making sure that we are helping our students and the community and our district and our schools rather. Look for opportunities. Make sure that you're helping our students be the best that they could be by providing them an opportunity to be a leader. Not only for the students, bring their families in. Do cultural awareness nights, do family nights, do movie nights. Again, all of this, whether you believe it or not, impacts the mind, the body, and the soul. Because when a student feels heard and a student feels good about themselves, their soul and their mind, it continues to evolve. You know, when the odds are stacked against you, we as educators, we as community members, we as parents, we as students need to make sure that we're helping the person that's struggling to press harder. I don't think that I would be where I'm at right now if I didn't have the right people in my life to guide me and to help my soul understand that what I was going through was okay. But sometimes we don't know that. Sometimes we think too much. And I tell kids all the time, you're spending too much time spinning your wheels in your mind that you're not putting anything into action. So speaking about the mind, and I thought we'd talk a little bit about mental health. So a student by the name of Alejandro Rojas wrote in November of 2020, being young is a synonym of change, progress, and future. Being young is ultimately facing challenges and creating or recreating a space for future full development. It means turning problems into opportunities and solutions and being the driving force of society. What a powerful quote from this young man that really tells us that our youth have a lot to share, and that if we continue to work with them, we will continue to see them flourish as successful young individuals. But I want to also, I'd be remiss if I didn't speak a little bit of the challenges that are facing our children state of mind. Let's start in reverse here. The impacting of our children living in conflict zones. Now, some of you can say that there are wars going on across our country, but across our world, but there are wars going on in our own country. A couple of weeks ago, I was offered the opportunity to deliver Salvation Army food that was donated to them to our students in need. I took a drive into some of our poorest communities, and I saw that our kids were living in really impoverished situations where there are some difficult situations that they're going through. But it helped me understand that I have to continue to move forward as the superintendent, as a district, to help these children. Our children are hungry. That's the reason I was excited. It was 112 degrees, and I was out there delivering food for these kids. And let me tell you, while other people would run from the heat, I welcomed it because I was delivering food to kids that needed it. 2 years of disrupted education. We know that COVID has not been nice. We know that it has really placed a lot of our students behind. Our kids that were already academically deficient, the gap got wider. And for the kids that probably were on target, they developed a gap. We have to foster care. We have to make sure that our kids know that we care for them. And COVID impacts, a lot of parents are still stuck between the pandemic versus returning to school. There's a lot of fear that still exists out there. But I also want to talk about the impacts that our teenagers are going through. There's a lot of depression out there. There's a lot of bullying. There's a lot of sexual activity. There's drug use. There's alcohol use, obesity, academic problems, and peer pressure. Basically, a lot of our students are asking for help. And if we don't take the time to sit down and slow down to help them, we're not gonna be able to capture them in time. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on COVID-19 provided poor mental health and suicide behavior among U.S. high school students at an increase. So what you're seeing here is that persistent feeling of sadness or hopelessness increased by 40% between 2009 and 2019 for U.S. high school students. So take a moment to look at this. You can see experience persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. That's a big increase of over 10%. Seriously considered attempting suicide. Again, an increase of 5%. Made a suicide plan. That's close to 5%. I'm a former counselor, so you know that if a student makes a suicide plan, the chances are that if we don't get to them, they may succeed in going through with committing suicide. So we want to make sure that we detect the early signs. Attempted suicide from 6.3% to almost 9%. That's almost over a 2% increase in 10 years. We're injured in a suicide attempt, 1.9 to 2.5. Again, the situation is dire. And I think one of the things that came out of COVID, and I think I spoke about this earlier, and I think a lot of educators would agree, I think mental health has always been an issue. I think that depression has always been there. But I think what happened when we locked our children up into a house because of a disease, a pandemic that happened, some of these kids spiraled out of control. I say that by saying this: mental health has always been an issue. What COVID did is it helped put a spotlight on it, maybe a spotlight that we needed. While there's a lot of bad things that come out of COVID, there are some good things that came out of it. For example, understanding that mental health is a bigger issue than we thought prior to COVID-19. We also dealt with academic loss, academic and learning loss. So again, learning loss refers to any specific or general loss of knowledge and skills, or to reversal in academic progress. Now, a lot of people started hearing about learning loss after COVID-19. But what people don't understand is that learning loss has always existed. It just became highlighted, right? While learning loss can manifest in a wide variety of ways for a variety of reasons, the following are a few representative examples of widely recognized forms of learning loss. Summer school. There's a reason we provide summer school, right? Interrupted formal education, example, COVID-19, returning dropouts, school absences, and ineffective instruction. So I thought I would end with some strategies and resources that really would help incorporate mind, body, and soul activities in your schools. Programs that promote social emotional learning, emphasize self-awareness and management, meditation, mindfulness. Some even try yoga. Social awareness and responsibility decision-making. A lot of our youth are not, the sad part about technology is that these phones have become both the greatest thing in the world, but also a difficult thing in our world. A lot of our kids are influenced by social media. They're influenced by their friends. Focus on safe ways students can get help themselves and for others. We have to make sure that we encourage our youth that if they don't need help, but they know someone that needs help, that they have the resources to help them. One of the things that we did in my current district is we developed a hotline, and I'm sure a lot of school districts are doing that. We developed a hotline that students can call during the weekends or after hours so that we can make sure that we capture them and help them if they need the help. PBIS, positive behavioral intervention and supports, that's huge. There's so many different tiers, so many different examples in PBIS that districts should be and could be using as a resource. Schools are crucial partners in supporting the health and well-being of students. In addition to education, they provide opportunities for academics, social, mental health, and physical health services that can help protect against negative outcomes. Again, we have to work with our children to help them. School connectedness is key to addressing the needs of our students. Being cared for, supported, and belonging at school is important. So one of the things that I think that has really helped me is really building relationships. Fall in love with taking care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit or soul. Strong relationship with teachers and school staff can dramatically enhance students' level of motivation and therefore promote learning. Students who have access to more strong relationships and more academically engaged have stronger social skills and experience more positive behavior. If that doesn't speak to mind, body, and soul/spirit, I don't know what does. So what I'm saying here is that relationships are important. I pride myself in building relationships with students, with staff, with parents, and community members. Because you see, it takes a village, right? And that sounds so cliche, but believe it or not, it's true. If we work together in the name of our students, there's nothing that we can't do to help them overcome. One of my favorite people in the whole wide world, may she rest in peace, is Rita Pearson. And Rita really talks about relationships. And one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection, relationships. Every student deserves a champion. I hope that my message today inspires you to continue to be that champion if you already are. If you haven't taken the step to be that champion for your students, for yourself if you're a student, for your classmates, for your colleagues, I hope that today you run with the opportunity to really build relationships to help build an individual's mind, body, and soul. Why use the interconnected system framework to address mental health in school? So I kind of threw this in just as some ideas that you can continue to utilize in your system. Identify students with social and emotional behavior needs early. There are some strategies that you can do to do that. Link students to evidence-based intervention. Use data to ensure students are receiving support to improve outcomes. Create healthier school environments. Again, I wanted to provide some strategies from PBIS. The key message here is single system of delivery. Access is not enough. Mental health for all. Multi-tiered system of support is essential to install systems to support school mental health issues at your school. Enhance multi-tiered system of support for features. Integrated teams. If we're talking, if we're connecting with each other, we can capture these moments with our students. Expand database decision-making. It is my hope that you guys will leave here today and meet with your staff, meet with your community members, meet with students and say, hey, we need to make sure that we're looking at our mind, our body, and our soul so that we know that we're encompassing that these three intertwine with each other. And so make it a collaboration and make sure that you have a screening method in place to make sure that you can screen for these kids. And please, 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 whatever you do, provide ongoing coaching. Our new teachers, our new staff, our new students, they don't know what they don't know sometimes. And it's our responsibility as educators to make sure that we are helping each other, but also helping those that probably don't know and should know. So how to build relationships with students to enhance mind, body, and soul. Here are some strategies. Know their story. One of the best activities that you can do, whether you're a teacher, a colleague, a community member, is everybody has a story. You know how I shared my story with you? What's your story? Talk to students in class and outside of class. We talked about that earlier. You know, when students come to your class, they don't just want the academic. They want to see you as a human being. They want to see you as an individual that also had struggles. If you struggled in life and there were some things that you want to share with them, I would share with students, because once you could relate with them, they're more open to working with you. Explicitly value the child over the content. Again, trying to understand your children. But this is basically saying that not all children learn the same. So make sure that you're making the needs of those children depending on what their needs are. Play games. You know, that's okay to go out there and play hopscotch. It's okay to go out there and play basketball. It's okay to go out there and play whatever sport that the kids are playing. Again, through curriculum, through learning models, assume the best in every student. I know that it's easy to say that this child, you know, I always tell my staff, when a child is acting out, maybe if you try to assume the best in them and understand why they're acting out, you'll have a better idea of who they are as a person and how you can help them. Interview students. You know, when I arrived to my new district, do you know that I interviewed, well, you wouldn't know this, but I interviewed every single one of my employees downtown. I asked them 3 questions. What did they like about our district? What are some areas that we can focus on? And something that I would know. So for students, tell me something amazing about yourself or your family. What's something that you struggle with? And then tell me something that I should know about you. Let students interview you. Have them ask you questions. Attend their extracurricular events. I get invited to all the students' events and I try to go to as many of them as possible. Be authentic. You know, students know when you're not authentic. Call home and celebrate successes early in the year. I'll end by saying this quote: health is a state of complete harmony of the body, mind, and spirit/soul. And when I think of mind, body, and soul and spirit, these are all the wonderful words that come to mind. Behavior, yoga, recreation, positive mindset, eat well, lifestyle, training, education, feeling, energy. So if you notice here, this is not something that just starts in school. This is something that we have, our mind, body, and soul lives both in school, out of school, wherever we're at. I thank you, and I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you again for the opportunity. And I did add some resources and references at the end of my presentation so that you can, a lot of the stuff items that I spoke about today are highlighted in these links.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Gauna. We really appreciate you and all the great insight you shared about relationship building, storytelling, and the connection between our mind, bodies, and souls, and how we can support students in healing those. Does anyone have any questions for Superintendent Gauna? Feel free to write them in the chat. I see a comment saying you are so awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If anyone else would like to provide any commentary or any questions, feel free. Someone commented, that was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
It was my honor.
All right. Do we have any other questions, Lynn, in the chat?
Just one question came in. How can you help coach other staff who are having a hard time engaging with students?
That's an amazing question. Thank you so much for that question. I think the first step is identifying that they're struggling. The second step would be to sit down with them and ask them, why do they feel that they're struggling? The third step is to provide them some examples. And I always like to model by example. So if one of my staff is struggling, I may try to get to the root cause of the problem, but then I'll send some examples for them, and then I will model those examples for them. Sometimes it's just as simple as they're new teachers, some are veterans, some of them don't see the value. So you have to show the why behind why you do what you're doing. And you could also pair them up with another teacher of their same grade level, or another teacher that you feel does a great job connecting with their students.
Thank you. And there's another question. Any advice for building more meaningful student relationships as an outside provider who might only see them for a short amount of time once a week?
Yes, when you see them, start with celebrations. All my meetings that I try to have is celebrations. So I can come in and say, hello, Johnny, how are you today? I'm doing great. So tell me, how was your weekend? If you can pinpoint one thing that you did great this weekend, what was it? They may say, you know what, I went to the fair. Wow, I went to the fair too. What was your favorite ride? Oh, I like whatever ride that they had there. Oh my God, I don't like that ride. That ride's really scary for me. I'm building a relationship. That child sees the connection. Try to connect with them. Even though you only see them once, you have that whatever you do. Like, for example, I went to my high schools. I've seen a couple of students 3 times, but I always talk with them. I always try to connect with them on a different level. You see, when kids think that all you're going to do is talk to them about academics, you're going to lose them. But when you start talking to kids about something outside of academics and build upon it, then the next time you see them, make sure if you add a conversation with them that you could build on, you build on it the next time you see them.
Thank you so much. Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and get to our closing part. So with that, I would like to thank Dr. Gauna and thank everyone for joining us today for our opening keynote session. Before we close out, I wanted to highlight this new children's book that our executive director, Debbie Odo Kent, recently wrote, entitled A Park for Everyone. It's based on our work in Roseville and showcases the power of community, as well as the importance of having safe community spaces like parks and schools for our kids. It's a really incredible book, and we'll be sending all of you more information if you're interested in picking up a copy. It is available on Amazon. The link with more information about the book will be placed in the chat and emailed out. With that, I will close our keynote session. As a reminder, if you need professional development credits for today's session or would like to be entered to win a gift card, please complete the post-session survey, which was dropped in the chat earlier. And we'll also be sending this out via email after the session. And please join us tomorrow at 3:30 for our second session for the School Wellness Summit called Food, Movement, and Mood, the Impact of Whole Student Health. We look forward to seeing you. Have an amazing evening. Take care. Bye.